A few years ago, if you wanted to buy an electric vehicle, really the only choice you had were Teslas. These days, everybody's making an electric vehicle. Ford, GM, Chevy, Hyundai, Kia, whatever car manufacturer you can think of is making some sort of an EV. And that's a great thing because Tesla needs all the competition it can get because every single day, all you see are Teslas. They're like ants populating the entire world. In this video, I'm gonna compare the Hyundai Ioniq 5 to a Tesla Model Y. When it comes to looks, I like the Ioniq 5. I like the futuristic look of it. And because there's not a lot of them out there, when one drives by, it does catch your attention. I like the styling of it and I like the way it looks, especially with the lights turned on. All the little squares lighting up. It's a pretty unique design. With the Model Y and the Model 3, I just don't like the way they look. It's too round, and the fact is they're everywhere. And because of that reason, I prefer the Ioniq 5 over the Model Y, and let's face it, this thing will stand out on the road. The Model Y, you're just gonna blend in with everybody else. I like the look of the wheel. It's modern. It gives you the signal that it's a car of the future. With the front lights turned on, you have this vertical strip of thin lights all the way across. I think that's pretty cool. The biggest complaint I have with the Tesla are the seats. They're nowhere near as good as what you have in this Hyundai. These are actually really good seats, and the interior quality in the Hyundai is way better than the Tesla. This is a real solidly built car, and on the inside, you're not gonna hear a lot of rattling. Really good build quality. These seat inserts are a nice touch. Tesla's interior quality is just not that good. Even in the Model S Plaid that I bought recently, that was supposed to be a $150,000 car when they first built it. The interior is still not as good as what you see in this used Ioniq, which will cost you $20,000. The ride quality in this is great, and when you're driving on the freeways, it's surprisingly quiet, quieter than even the Model S that I have. That's really one of the great things about the Ioniq over the Model Y is you're gonna get a ride and quietness in this car that's very peaceful, very relaxing, and this thing has something that the Tesla doesn't have. You have very soothing sounds of nature, lively forest, city at dawn, rainy day, autumn sentiments, warmth in winter. Would you like a stress-free life? Get the Ioniq. Therapy is certainly an option, or have the Ioniq solve your problems. And you can have these sounds playing as you're driving, which means road rage is gonna be a thing of the past. Folks, the key to happiness lies in the Ioniq. The Tesla doesn't have these soothing sounds of nature, but guess what? It also creates a lot of happiness because it's got fart sounds. Practicality and space-wise, the Ioniq and Model Y are mostly the same except for one glaring fact. Under the hood, you don't have really any space in the Ioniq. The only thing that you can store in the front is one iPad and 3 pens. Plenty of storage elsewhere in the car though. You have this whole area, even some in the back. Technology-wise, it's very hard to beat Tesla. They're so far ahead of any other car manufacturer. But if you don't care about self-driving, then this car is probably good enough. And one thing that I appreciate about this, where it's kind of annoying with the Tesla, is not everything is through that big screen. With my Model S that I own today, the biggest pet peeve that I have with it is I have to go into that screen even to change mirrors or change climate or adjust the vents. There's almost too much technology in it. This is nice because at least climate control is down here, and you have normal mirror adjustment buttons in the door panel. Manually adjustable vents, which is actually a nice thing. Sometimes too much technology can be a bad thing, and my Tesla is living proof of that. It turns out that having physical buttons is not such a bad thing after all. When it comes to charging, Tesla has this car beat by a long shot. That's really the problem with all electric cars. Tesla has their great charging infrastructure. Unfortunately for any other electric vehicle, using standard chargers is just not good enough. There's just not that many charging stations out there, and even if you can find one, some of them don't even work. They're usually full, and the fast chargers are just not fast enough. If you happen to own a house, then you just plug this thing overnight in your garage and you'll be fine. But trying to drive around and find chargers, it's too much of a pain and too much of a hassle. The range in this Ioniq 5 isn't too bad, 65%, 153 miles left. Tesla is working on opening up its superchargers to other brands, other car manufacturers, and when that happens, charging will get a whole lot easier. If you look at used electric vehicle options, you're gonna find a lot of really good deals. A 2022 Hyundai Ioniq 5, just like this one, will be about $20,000. A comparable Model Y, maybe a couple years older, 2020 or 2021, will be in the mid-20s. Pretty comparable pricing, and in my opinion, really great deals for both SUVs. But do you really want to drive around in a Model Y when every other person seems to have one? This is a base model Ioniq 5, so it only has 225 horsepower, rear-wheel drive, single motor. A comparable Model Y would be quicker with almost 300 horsepower if you get the base single motor. But with cars like this that are commuter cars, you have the instant torque, which is more than enough. So the power isn't really going to matter that much because you're not going to use this as an enthusiast vehicle. This will be a daily commuter. And from that perspective, the power in this one is fine. Passing power in this thing is completely reasonable. The Model Y might be quicker and more of a performance-oriented SUV, but when it comes to just pure comfort, quietness, and luxury, the Ioniq 5 is better than the Model Y. In fact, I would say this is quieter than my Model S, which is supposed to be a much more luxurious, expensive car. The ride quality in this Ioniq 5 is fantastic. You don't feel the bumps or imperfections on the road. It just glides over everything smoothly. You add really nice seats to that, and what you have here is a great ride. And if you really wanted to get more power, you could opt for the all-wheel drive version of the Ioniq 5, which will give you 320 horsepower, almost 450 pound-feet of torque. When it comes to these electric motors, you can get gobs and gobs of instant torque. So whatever need for speed you have, you can always be satisfied with electric cars. I don't know how Hyundai pulled off such a quiet ride at this kind of a price point that's completely economical and affordable. Recently, I did a more in-depth review about the Ioniq 5. Check out that video if you haven't already. I'll link to it in the description. And if you happen to own an Ioniq 5, drop a comment. Let me know how your experience has been with one of these. If you're looking for a cheap used electric vehicle, then you're going to enjoy this Ioniq 5. If you can charge this at home overnight, then I would get one because this is better quality. It has a nicer drive, a better ride, much more peaceful and calm, and best of all, you can cancel your therapist session, so you're actually going to save some money. Now, if you'll excuse me, I need to relax myself by listening to some calming tunes.